one. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jennifer Urezzio, founder and spiritual director of Soul Language, and welcome to Stories with the Divine. There are several million times now in my life that I can point to and say, there's proof that the divine knows who I am. And I feel it's so important for others to share and for you to hear those stories. This show provides the forum for those narratives. It's important for us to know our conscious connection to our divinity. And today I'm with Shoshana French. Yay! The Simple Spirit. So exciting. Welcome, Shoshana.
Hi.
Okay, so when was like the pivotal time, like the one that sticks into your memory when you were like, hey, God, universe, tree, goddess, mother, father, whatever you want to call that, was like, hey, I see you and I know who you are and I'm supporting you?
Well, what I was going to say was the first time that I had what I would call an irrefutable experience of the divine. I was 7. And it's often the story I share about a moment I knew I was different from other people. So in the church that I grew up in, they weren't super like, what would be the word? It wasn't like we spoke in tongues or danced in the aisles. However, you did get baptized. We're Presbyterian. So, but in our church, you had to be 10 because they were waiting for a certain level of maturity. So then you could understand what you were asking for. So I asked for it when I was 7 because I was like, no, I know, like, I know what I'm about. I'm about this and I want to be baptized. Like I want to, and my understanding of it, even now, as I think about it, was like, when you're baptized, it's just the affirmation of connection with the divine, right?
Yeah.
So I beg and beg, and they all say no. My mom went and talked to the pastor. His name was Mark. And she goes, Mark, here's the thing. Shoshana doesn't ask for stuff unless she's sure. Even at 7, my mom knew I knew my own mind. Please baptize her. So we're on like one of those big trips, where you're in kind of like a conference area, Christian conference area, and they have a big pool and they go in there and they dunk you, right? And I waited in line and I was literally the youngest person in the room because everybody else was 10, but most people were 20 and 30, right? This was like, and so they dunk me. And as I'm underwater, I have this like, and all of a sudden there's like this light in front of me and we have this little conversation, which is like, like every child is a child of God. Every child, every person at the core of who they are loved by me. That includes you. And your job is to love every person. Okay. I was like, sweet. And I pop up and I'm really excited because I'm like, I can't wait to tell everybody what I just saw. And so the lady, she like helps me up and Mark helped me up. And I'm like, getting pool water out of my eyes. And I'm like trying to get the words. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just met God. And they were like, okay. And they're like hugging me and telling me like, good job. And then I was like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah. I just met God.
And I told all of them and they were like, I got really strange looks. So my mom, my stepdad at the time, and Mark all sat me down and they were great about it in that way that, said, I know how 7-year-olds make stuff up.
Yeah. Pat you on the head.
Yeah. And my mom was like, I believe that you met God because I believe that the Holy Spirit can communicate with us. And so she really believed me. But she did tell me it's not always great to tell people that stuff because people won't believe you. My stepdad was like, yeah, no, that's weird. And then Mark was like,
the pastor,
honey, the pastor was like, I think you had a really beautiful experience. And I think if you tell people about it, they won't understand. And instead of like, I thank God that I was the 7-year-old I was because I actually understood what he meant. If you tell people about it, they will feel disconnected from you instead of connected to you. And so I was like, oh, I have to hide this thing. So then, but after an experience like that, you're like, oh, I have to love everybody. But, people are mean.
Yeah. And that's not easy to do.
I was a really fat kid, and people are especially mean to little fat kids who are really happy and want to share with you about God. So, but that was my first experience with what I would consider to be like that deep connection to all that is, and that it had a purpose for me here on the planet, or does have a purpose for me on the planet.
So how did you not allow that impact of I get to love everyone, right? I'm a child of God, they're a child of God, so we get to love, and that's, like so without effort for you to love people because I know you so well. But how did you not let that impact you with being faced with people are mean? Because you and
Um,
I have that same thing. But you and I have that same thing where there's a part of us that really is so innocent, which is so funny for both of us because we're so warrior like, right? But that we go, I don't really understand why you're mean. Like, I don't get it. Like, why are you mean? Like, there's a part of us that's so innocent that we just don't understand how that is true. So, how did you not allow it to affect you, or how did you bounce back from it impacting you?
hmm. Well, for people who are watching this that are like curious about whether they're atheists or they're like agnostic or really religious, wherever people feel or sit on the spectrum, for me, I became one of those really religious people. And so it became very black and white for me. So rather than what I would say my spiritual practice now is a like in inclusive, like, which is what I know the divine meant to me in that moment. I became a very exclusive, very black and white, very masculine about this is the way that you get to God. There's no other way. And if you don't get to God this way, you don't get to God at all. So that's like, I did that for a while. And then when I was 16, the pizza place I worked at, there was a shooting, and I went to 5 funerals. I wasn't there when the shooting happened, but I went to 5 funerals in a month. And me and the divine had some words.
Yeah.
And I was like, all the people who were shot were deeply religious people, like the kind of people who, run soup kitchens, start clothing drives at their churches. And I was like, seriously, God, WTF, I
Yeah.
don't understand. And you know how things like what a tragedy, and in my own personal journey, not in the journey of that's a tragedy and no questions asked, but sometimes tragedy leads us to the truth of who we are. And that set me on a journey of, well, if God isn't this way, like da 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 da, da fits in this box, and God's bigger than that, and actually the divine is bigger even than what I can conceptualize, what does that even look like? I mean, loving people has never stopped, but there is a healthy way of loving people and an unhealthy way for sure. And the divine wanted me not to love people. He wanted me to love people unconditionally without detriment to me. And
Right.
I didn't know how to do that for a very, very long time. So, the journey now takes me here. I would say that I did an okay job in a world that kind of crushes people who are naturally optimistic and joyful for no reason. Um, but uh, I changed people's minds about things, and it was not intentionally. When I stopped being so rigid about my perspective about God, like what I would now call God goddess, like when I stopped being so rigid about the definition of something, meaning that other people can have definitions and I can have my definition, the divine lives beyond words that we have to describe what that energy is, then I just found the depth of connection to people like grew and expanded. And I could be with people who still thought being optimistic is naive, being this joyful means that I'm bypassing the truth of human suffering. Like I can be with all of that now because it doesn't invalidate me, and I can listen without invalidating them. And I think that's probably what God meant when we had that connection when I was 7, like love all people, and all people are my children. Like every single person comes from that spark of divinity. So love all of them equally and be a safe space. So that's what I work on doing now. And it's not always easy because some
No.
people, bless their souls, are a little bit harder for me to be optimistic and joyful about.
Yeah, and listen, you can love everyone. You don't have to like everyone. And I
Amen on
think,
that one.
right? And I think so often, we can get in that kind of conflict of that. And, you know, also when we become so rigid about anything, we create that pushing conflict energy within us. And so we're not all inclusive. We're not in that feeling of feeling open and feeling safe. So I went to the grocery store today, and this woman was, behind the checkout, and I was like, "Oh, are you open?" She's like, "Yes." I was like, "Oh, your light's not on." She's like, "Well, I just got here." And I was like, "Okay, let's pause, Jen, because what did I say to her that makes her think that I was being judgmental because I wasn't. I was like, oh, your light's not on. And I realized that it's just the warrior, the declaration of truth. And people can take that as judgment if they're not 100% or willing to love themselves. And it was such an aha, Shoshana, that I went, oh, oh. So, what I also know is that that divine is always going love, love, love. And sometimes for humans, that's the hardest thing because it's so vulnerable and it can lead, and they've had some bad experiences with human love. So I just applaud you that you've kept solid to your interaction, that first interaction with divinity, and kind of created and moved through this journey that allowed you to like really be that 7-year-old in heart and
Mm.
have the growth of who you are go, yeah, you're crossing a boundary that's not good. So I'm going to love you, but from very afar. And I'm going to move on to what I'm here to help others be and do.
When you were
Um,
sharing the story, oh, sorry, when you were
no,
sharing the
go.
story about the grocery store, the thing that came to me was because today's my birthday. And so whenever people listen to this, it was my birthday, might have been a little while ago, but um, on our birthdays, we have the opportunity to have people tell us happy birthday, which could seem like a perfunctory thing, right? Like everybody's going to wish us happy birthday because that's what you do on birthdays. However, I made a deal with myself when I turned 40, which is to let in every birthday as though it's meant from the place of appreciation and love. And so, even the Facebook messages of people saying happy birthday, I let myself be moved to tears because in that communication from the divine when I was 7, it was really a communication about, and it's, as an intuitive, there is no separation. And so when I am separated from the divine and feel separate from the divine as though it's a thing outside of me that I have to do something to reach versus it is inside of me, flowing through me, and I am connected all the time, then I feel disconnected from others, like there's something separate from me. So part of my journey, and I hope people who watch this, is partially the truth of your own connection to the divine, but it's letting the divine in. It's letting that wave of love, whether it comes directly from a religious or spiritual experience or from other human beings. Like the more I let people love me, actually, the more love I have to give out. I just never thought it would go that way, but that's how it, for sure, that's how it goes for me.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Okay, so you touched on a little bit about what you do here on this planet. Can you tell us a little bit more? And then don't forget to give out your website and how people can have more of your goodness.
So, what I do in the world is I help people connect to that inner voice, that inner wisdom, intuition, and I do it in a really practical way. And obviously, my deep hope is that when people connect to their intuition, they connect to the truth of their purpose and their vision for the kind of life that they want. And I work with people in business so that their businesses are aligned with that and they can move to that. And I work with people who, for their lives and their relationships with their kids, their health. You can find me on simplespirit.com. And I'm easy to find. I'm on Instagram, Shoshana French. I'm on Facebook. You can find me everywhere.
And, what I love about what you do, first of all, I'm kind of a brat. And so, when people say they're intuitive, I kind of sometimes roll my eyes, even though I'm highly intuitive. And when you say it, I'm like, yeah, off the charts. Like,
Mm.
there are people that some people would call dialed in, right? You are one of those people that understand how to connect, understand your database, and understand how to help people understand their own database, which is so important. And what I love about what you do is that it's both tangible earth and sky, right? It's spiritual and practical. It's utilizing those internal kind of systems to support everyone having a life that's blissful for them and happy and joyful and successful, and helping them really hear, feel, see, or sense how deeply they're loved and appreciated. And I think that a lot of people who work on intuition don't include the consciousness part of it. You do the consciousness part, which is It's not just transformation, it's transcendence. So thank
Mm,
you. Thank you for
thank
doing
you.
that.
Thank you for getting what I do. I appreciate it.
I love it. Okay, so as we're wrapping up, because you have to go off and have your birthday day, which is so exciting. What is the kind of one thing you want people to remember about this thing called God, universe, tree, goddess, Bob, cupcake, whatever you want to call it, dog? What do you want people to remember about that connection?
um, whatever you want to call it, it's always communicating something to us, but mostly our energy towards that concept is more like, hey, you, I'm here, what's going on? But we don't remember to be still and listen. So the thing I would want people to remember is if you're willing to pause when you ask questions, just pause after and listen, and then be open to what shows up. It could be a hummingbird outside. It could be your favorite song popping on. It could be that unexpected text message with an I love and appreciate you from a friend. All of those are messages from the divine.
Beautiful. I'm laughing because last week a hummingbird was like this close to my face, and I was like, "Oh, oh, oh!" And then it went away, and it came back. I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it. Thank you." Like, very
Of course, a
interesting.
hummingbird went by
Of
your
course,
face.
of course. Thank you so much for taking your time today, especially on your special day. And thank you so much for being in my life and being who you are. I'm just full of gratitude for you, your company, and everyone I know via being connected to you and by you. So thank you.
Thank you. I love you too.
Yay. Everyone, you've been listening to Stories with the Divine. And if you're interested in having a deeper connection, you can log on to soullanguage.us/gift of purpose. And let's get you really consciously connecting to your soul and the divine. Okay, everyone. Bye for now.